everybody. Welcome back to our podcast. Welcome back.
Oh my God.
I'm Steph.
And I'm Liz.
Thank you guys for listening. I am so happy to be here tonight and recording this podcast. It's definitely a special one for me.
Yeah, this is really exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited to kind of share just the experiences that I've had so far. If you listened to last week's episode, I mentioned a little bit how this week I had like a really great opportunity that God opened the doors for. And I'm really excited to kind of really share that with everyone who's listening. So This is going to be a really, really great podcast.
Yeah.
For everyone who's new, welcome to the Butterfly Effect.
Yes.
We just want to welcome you into our family. This is a podcast of authenticity, vulnerability, and perspective, and just sharing what God is doing in our lives and the lives of people around us.
Yeah.
If you are a musician, send in your music. We would love to play you in the beginning of our podcast show, shout you out, get your music out there for people to listen. We have been growing, which is amazing.
Yeah, for real.
And I'm really excited to see this kind of go forward.
Yeah.
I think that when we first started this podcast, we didn't expect it to be like what it is now.
Yeah.
But God has just been doing really cool stuff. We've been getting amazing feedback. So the people that have just journeyed with us, thank you so much for journeying with us.
Yeah.
We love you guys. You guys are amazing.
You can listen to us on YouTube, iTunes, podcast app,
Spotify. Yeah.
Honestly, anywhere that you listen to a podcast, you can find us there.
We're on a bunch of platforms. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna link like our Instagram on the bio.
Yeah, so you can kind of follow our lives as well.
Yeah, and see.
So we can follow your lives.
Yeah. Kind of connect. We love community. Yeah, I'm really excited. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm thriving.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's been like such a good...
Last week we didn't upload or record because of where we were at. Well, where you were at.
Right.
So the podcast before the podcast 2 weeks ago, I feel like I was in like a rut creatively wise, and now I'm out of it.
Great.
Which is exciting.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
So,
which is something we've been praying for. That's another thing.
Yeah.
If you guys have prayer requests, we would love to join with you in prayer. What we've been noticing is that a lot of the people that we've been praying for, there's been so much breakthrough in their lives.
Yeah.
So if there's something that you feel like you're in a rut, whether you're an artist, we want to pray with you for creativity and wisdom to be released, for resources to be released, and people to be released. If you are just going through life and you feel like you're in a season that's dry, we want to join with you. We want to love on you. We want to be with you through this.
We know what it's like.
Yeah. We want to stand with you. We know what it's like to not have people kind of stand with us when we're in a rut. So we really want people to know that we love them and that we want to pray with you. We want to stand with you. We have really amazing podcasts being set up for these next few episodes.
Yeah.
We have a few people coming on to kind of share their lives, their perspectives. We have somebody coming who's an expert in mental health.
Yep.
And he specifically touches on mental health in and outside of the church.
And he's a millennial, which is really cool.
And that's one of the most biggest requested topics that we've gotten since we started this was mental health inside and outside of the church. And so we've been kind of talking about that for months and how we would go about that topic because it's such an important topic. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we don't want to just share opinions. We want to share facts. We want to hear from professionals.
Right, and I don't have the facts. He does.
Which is a good segue into what we're going to talk about.
It's perfect, actually.
Because this guy is actually the person that got me to where I'm at, into the experience that I had last week.
Yeah.
His name is Gilbert. He's one of the most amazing people I've ever met. Super humble, loves the Lord, but God has given him such an opportunity. He's only 25.
I think so, yeah.
And he's young. He's a millennial young. And God has given him so many opportunities to share on the importance of mental health inside and outside of the church, the importance of balance inside and outside the church. What is a spirit and what isn't a spirit? What is an actual mental health issue? And so I'm so excited about that one because it's something that we've been kind of anticipating for a few months. So stay tuned for that one. We have another person coming on that's going to share about the perspective of a police officer and what they go through. And then we have another person coming on that's going to talk about leadership and our role in society as leaders. So we have some really amazing topics being set up. So please send in your requests. We would love to talk about it. Let us know what you want us to talk about.
Yeah, and spread the word, because
spread the word. Yeah,
that's kind of the only way that this thing grows is by you sharing it and telling people about it.
Yeah, and for the ones that have been sharing it, thank you so much. We are so grateful for you guys getting the word out there and really sharing your perspective on the episodes. It's amazing. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for sharing and really just supporting us. It really means a lot to us.
So,
the
National Prayer Breakfast.
The National Prayer Breakfast.
How did this happen, Stephanie? How did you get invited to be in the same room as the president?
Of all people.
And then not just the president, but the leaders of the world.
Yeah.
Well, first, do you want to explain what the National Prayer Breakfast is? Because I didn't know what it was until that Netflix docuseries that we watched called The Family.
Yeah.
So can you share with us?
Yeah. So the National Prayer Breakfast, if you haven't heard of it, they hold it every year. And it's a chance for rulers and leaders from all over the world, pastors, missionaries, government officials, lords, princes, princesses, kings, queens, presidents, people from literally all over the world. 150 nations were represented in the room, and 49 states were represented in the room that day. There was over 2,500 people there in one room and 750 people in another room. Wow. So it's just an amazing time for people from all over the world to come together in the name of Jesus. Yeah. And just hear from different speakers on what unity looks like, on what love looks like. It's a chance for nations who are normally at war with each other to sit in the same room and not have to deal with the politics of their everyday life, not have to deal with the pressures of their everyday life, and just simply be human, have breakfast, and
be
just
ministered to.
Be ministered to. Yeah, it's really cool if you look at the history of the National Prayer Breakfast. How it all started was because there was a president. I forget which one it was. I think it was Theodore Roosevelt, who was very lonely. That's the way he describes it, that he was super lonely. He didn't have any friends because he was the president. He kind of just had like allies and people who were in leadership, but not necessarily people who he would call his friends. And so in Congress, if you don't know, they meet together every week to pray. They have worship and they pray every single week. At the end of the week, and they pray for the nation, they pray for the leadership, they pray for the government. And this president came to the Congress breakfast prayer thing. And the reason why he came, he says, because he feels so lonely. And he needs a place where he can be encouraged in his faith, not judged, and just a safe place to find Jesus and find accountability. Yeah. And the people in Congress came together who were Christians, and they said, well, why don't we throw this for people all over the world who are rulers in government and just officials who have been, that are serving and that are, they have these really high positions and they need Jesus. So why don't we put together this breakfast, and we'll invite leaders and rulers from all over the world, and we'll just have them come and give them a safe place to just really find Jesus and encounter love and encounter unity and encounter friendship. So it is such a beautiful breakfast. It's such a beautiful thing. And I was so honored to be a part of it. After learning the history of it, it was such a beautiful, beautiful moment to just be in the room of people who are making history, people who are shaping countries and nations and that are in charge of these massive decisions, and to see them come and be humanized. Yeah. And just encounter Jesus. A lot of them encounter Jesus. I took this book that they had on the table. They give every person these books. And I took it home with me, and it's a book that says Jesus on the front of it. And it's the gospel. Wow. And what they preach to these people is the gospel. And you have people from all walks of life. I know. You have people who are rabbis and monks and people who are these high leaders in Islam, and all these people from all over the world who don't gather in the name of Jesus, coming to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. Yeah. Some of them for the first time.
Wow.
And so this prayer breakfast is actually such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And for people who are skeptics and they're like, well, I hate politics and I hate the government and I hate this, it's such an eye-opening experience.
I'll say that I used to be one of those people where I was like, who cares about the government? It's all corrupt anyway. There's no point in anything. Nothing's going to be able to be fixed. But being there, I wasn't in the actual prayer breakfast, but I was in the hotel, and like I was able to like see everybody come in and like see everybody's countenance change from when they walked in to when they walked out. I was like, oh wait, like there's something different here.
There's something
like,
different.
Jesus is in politics.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, my eyes were really open to that.
Yeah.
And my eyes were really open to praying for these people because they're under an immense amount of pressure. Like I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
No, they are. And that's some of the conversations that I've had with some of the people. And so, which we'll get into a little bit later. Yeah. The conversations and the people that I met there.
Yeah.
Some amazing people.
So how did you get invited?
Yeah. So Gilbert, which is what I mentioned earlier when we started the episode, he's just this guy that apparently comes to every Thanksgiving dinner. But this is the first time that I've ever heard of him.
Me too. And it's my family. Like I've been going to these Thanksgiving dinners every single year, and I've never met him.
He's friends with Trisha, who is Micah's cousin.
So basically like our cousin.
Basically, yeah. And Trisha's been inviting Gilbert out, and how Trisha and Gilbert know each other is like a whole other story.
Yeah, it's a whole life.
It's a whole other story, which we're not going to get into. But Trisha's been inviting Gilbert to Thanksgiving dinners. Well,
he's been a part of their life for like 5 years.
Yeah, for a while.
So he comes to like the birthday parties and everything like that.
Yeah, so
he's family.
He's family, yeah. So this guy walks in, which we remember him walking in, and we were like, who are these people? He walks in with his sister, and we have no idea who this guy is. So we kind of just continue, and they were like, oh, there's Trisha's friends, and like Aunt Annie loves him, whatever. Yeah. We were like, oh, okay. So we kind of continued. I didn't speak to him, but that week, to kind of preface like why this is such a God thing, that week before Thanksgiving, I would say that Monday, me and Liz were like driving to the gym, and I remember looking at her, and I remember crying and feeling like I don't have favor. I felt like God, like I don't have the favor of God on my life. Yeah. And sometimes I get in these ruts. I don't know if anybody can relate, where like you kind of just sit there and you get in your feelings,
you
feel stuck or whatever. Your mind is kind of clouded, and you just start to feel like the enemy starts to lie to you, and you just start to feel like God has left me. Like I don't have favor. He's not hearing me. Everything that I try to do, it ends up failing, or the doors end up closing. And I just don't understand why God is doing this. Like all I've given him my whole life is my yes. I've given my entire life over to him, and he still has my life. So I didn't understand it. And so I remember saying to Liz, like, I don't know, like I feel so stuck. I feel like God's favor is not on my life. I feel all these different things. And she started asking me like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I don't know, because I have a pull towards all these different areas. Like I have a pull towards the education system, and then I have a pull towards politics, and then I have a pull towards the arts, and then I have a pull towards like people and missions and like loving people. I think I mentioned this last podcast, like pastoring people and coming alongside people and breathing life into them and showing them the word of God and teaching them the word of God, right? Like I have all these different things that I feel that God has equipped me with, but I don't know like under what scope or under what guidelines I'm supposed to use these different giftings, you know? So I just felt super stuck. And so I was sharing those things with her, and I said, well, like, I don't even know why I said this, but I said to her, I was like, you know, one day I would like to get invited to the National Prayer Breakfast. And like, she was like, oh, like, what is that? And like, I was like, oh, like The Family, which is what we watched on Netflix. And you were like, oh yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I always can see it.
Yeah, she was like, oh, I can see it. And I'm like, yeah, like one day that would be cool. Maybe I'll get my answers then. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I just have a pull towards politics, you know? So then,
and it was so weird because you never really had a pull towards politics.
Never.
And, so when it started, like,
stirring.
Stir in your heart, I was like, okay, something's up. Normally when something stirs in your heart like that, something quickly, like very quickly happens where doors open in that specific area. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I see it.
Yeah, that's what you said to me. Like, okay, I see it. And like, that's kind of how we left the conversation. We kind of prayed and just like left it there. Like there was no answers. We didn't come to any conclusions. No, it was
just conversation. It was just you just letting out what you were feeling.
Yeah. And we fast forward, Thursday comes.
I feel like we had the same conversation that morning.
We did, yeah.
You were like, I feel like I don't have favor. And I'm like, girl, what you talking about?
I had it multiple times that week.
Yeah, but specifically that day.
Mm-hmm. And I remember feeling super down. Yeah. Like really,
you were having a hard day.
I was having a hard day. Yeah. Not because I was like depressed, but I was just feeling like, man, God, like I want to see you move in my life where like people know me as a woman of favor. Yeah. Like I felt like I was fighting and constantly like in an uphill battle. Yeah. And like I wanted to see God's favor, especially after everything with Bethesda and like stuff like that. I was just like, all right, like I tried to do something, it didn't work. Like now I'm confused. I don't know what to do. At that time, like I had just gotten the job at the school, so I'm like, is it teaching? Is it politics? Like I don't know. So I don't know. Like it was just like a wrestling. I was wrestling with God a little bit. Again, we prayed and I kind of left it at that. And then Thursday comes, like Thursday night, we go over to Sammy's. Gilbert walks in. I don't even talk to him.
I don't either.
I didn't even talk to him. I think we sat next to
There were so many people there.
We sat next to each other when we were taking a photo, and he was talking to Gigi, our grandma.
He was talking to our grandma.
And then...
and that was my first encounter with him because... you didn't have any encounter with him at all. None. My only encounter with him was he was talking to my grandma for like almost the whole night.
The whole night.
And when we were taking like the big family photo, I was over there for a little bit and I was sitting in that conversation for a little bit. And I was like, this is a very interesting, intriguing human being. I really like him. Like he has such a humble and pure heart. Yeah. And he had a cool accent.
Awesome guy. He's from Kenya.
So he has a thick accent.
Yeah, he's great. We
love it.
Yeah, he's great. So he starts talking a little bit about mental health and how it's important for our generation to really hear from the generations that came before us. So we were kind of like, okay.
I knew he had something to say. Yeah. Like he knew.
He has something in him.
Oh gosh. So sorry. Oh my gosh, you're funny. Okay, so he has a conversation. She's about to take out the whole podcast.
My bunny grabbed onto the wire. Anyway, I have bunny slippers. Anyway, so he's talking. We take the picture and I go home.
We both go home.
We go home, yeah.
And he ends up talking with my mom after this because my mom went up to him and was like, I'm so sorry because my grandma like loves to talk. Whose grandma doesn't? Yeah. Honestly, she's not a grandma if she doesn't like to talk.
Sure, yeah.
And so my mom went over there to kind of just be like see what's going on. Like, is she just talking his ear off? Like, what's happening here? Yeah. Because he was like with her the whole night. And my mom went over and she's like, is she bothering you? He's like, no, not at all. Like, he said something about how he likes to learn from the wise. Mm-hmm. Like talking to the older generation, he loves it because he learns so much from them. Yeah. And my mom was like, okay.
He's special.
Yeah, he's special. He's a smart millennial.
Yeah, so she started talking to him. Yeah. And they got into what he does, mental health. And then Sue brings up, like we're Christians. So, there's a spiritual side of things. And he was like, actually, I'm a Christian. And she was like, what? And like, so they start talking and they're talking for a while. And he actually invites Sue to the National Prayer Breakfast. And I had mentioned to Sue.
Like, wait, like he just met her and he's already inviting her? Like,
he
what?
Is, yeah. I don't remember exactly how the conversation got to the National Prayer Breakfast, but they ended up there. And Sue was like, because I had mentioned to Sue, like, oh, one day I would love to go to the National Prayer Breakfast. Like, let's just see what God does. Like, so when he says that, Sue was like, I don't want to go, but I know someone who does. Yeah. And Sue automatically connects me and Gilbert. Yeah. And so she asks me, she comes downstairs. I remember we were playing
video games.
We were playing video games.
I'm just being a little sad.
We were playing video games. And Sue comes downstairs and she's like, Steph, would you like to go to the National Prayer Breakfast? I was like, what?
I was like, what?
And like, she's like, it's not a definite.
Yeah, try not to get your hopes up.
Don't get your hopes up. Like, we don't know. He's just saying that he's going to see if he could get you in, whatever. So nothing was set in stone. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, we felt like God was like, yes.
Yeah.
Even though there was nothing set in stone, we felt this yes.
I was like, I don't think this is just going to be an empty promise.
Right. Yeah.
Because that has happened to you a lot in the past where people promise things to you and it's all emptiness.
Yeah, they don't really like say, like they don't really come through.
Yeah.
So they'll say like, oh, I can do this for you. And
but
then
it
like,
felt like there was something about it that
there was
like,
something about it.
I think this is genuine.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like the next day, I was like texting me. I'm like, hey guys, like I got invited to National Prayer Breakfast, whatever. And I felt like this moment of God's favor.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember, I just remember feeling like, oh God, like you hear me.
I was looking at you. I was like, girl, what you mean you don't have no favor?
And I felt like God was saying like, Steph, like, I know you don't feel these things, but it's there.
Yeah.
And like, this is just a testament of how faithful I am to you. 1 Thessalonians 5:4, he who has called you is faithful and he will do it. And like, that's what's been just kind of just playing in my spirit in this season. Like, he who has called you is faithful and he will do it. That's what it says. Yeah. And so like, it's this like reassurance that God is faithful.
Yeah.
And like, he is faithful to my calling. He's faithful to what I'm called to. And so like, in that moment, I felt that God's kind of like heaven's reassurance. Like, Steph, I'm with you. Yeah. You know? And so months pass by. We're kind of in contact.
Because Gilbert went to Europe.
Yeah.
So we weren't in contact with him at all.
He kind of goes away to Europe. And then he came back in January. Yeah. And we were supposed to meet him, like officially meet each other.
Yeah, because you literally had not one conversation with this boy.
Yeah. And he sends me the link onto like, you have to fill all this stuff out. He asked me for all my information.
For the breakfast.
Yeah, I send him all my information. And he's like, okay, now wait for your email. And I'm like, okay. And after that happens, we coded dinner together. Yeah. And this is like my first time actually meeting Gilbert. And it's so weird how God uses Gilbert, because on our way up to the meeting, again, we were talking about mental health, the church, like that topic. Me and Liz. And we were like, how are we going to even go about this? Like, this is a whole other animal. So we walk in and Gilbert starts talking about mental health in the church. And we were like looking at him.
Yes.
Yeah, we were looking at him like, this is so weird. So far, every time we have a private conversation, God uses this man to like pretty much answer it.
Yeah, light up what we were talking about.
Answer our question or answer our like, how are we going to do this? And like, he has the answer.
Yeah, or even show that this is a topic worth discussing. Right. Like, we're not alone. Yeah. Because I feel like for such a long time, we were feeling like we were alone in the things that we believed when it came to the church and mental health. And everything he was saying was like, not that he was just like stroking our ego or anything like that, like just yesing us to death. It was like genuine answers.
Yeah, he gave facts. It really he studied helped. It. Like, this is what he does, and he's done this for years. And so like, he's on the board of many mental health organizations.
He goes to schools and talks about mental health there.
Countries. He sat with the president of Kenya to talk about mental health in Kenya. Like, this guy, like he's
not a joke.
It's
like,
not a joke.
Legit.
He's serious. Yeah. And so he starts bringing that up. And so we're sitting there like, oh my gosh, like this man is an answered prayer. Yeah. And we start talking and just sharing our hearts. And he asked me about my testimony. And I start to share a certain part of my testimony. And he's like, well, I got invited to speak at a conference regarding a part of my testimony. And he's like, I'm supposed to speak at it, but I don't have a lot of background in it, but you do. And I went to Europe working with these type of people groups and all this stuff. And so he goes, it's this big conference in September to bring awareness to this area. And he was like, do you want to speak at it? And I was like, sure. Yeah. So like right then and there, he invites me to a conference in September in Atlantic City, speaking like to bring awareness to a certain issue that not a lot of people know about. And it's just, he's just like this person who's just been like such a loving side of God, but at the same time is like, okay, what do you need? Is this what you need? Okay, let's go do it. You know? So he asks me like, hey, did you get your email? And I'm like, no. Did you get yours? And he's like, no.
It's only a month until everything happens.
And he's like, normally they've already sent it out. And so we're already thinking like, like we might not get it. Like, okay, like, all right, God.
Preparing for disappointment.
Kind of preparing for disappointment. Like, okay, if it's not this year, then maybe you just put me and Gilbert together
Right.
so you can show me what are the possibilities, you know?
Right.
So we were kind of settling for the no.
And at that point then it was like a week away.
Yeah, it was like a week away.
So it was like, oh, we
Yeah.
have to plan.
Yeah, we didn't set any rooms up. We're like, okay, like, what do we do? We kind of need answers. So he calls Washington and he's like, they said they're sent out the email. And like,
Let me
he's
say
like,
something. Gilbert gets things done.
he does. He's like, they said they sent out the email and none of us got it.
Mhm.
He's like, but my friends got it. And it's weird because Washington isn't normally like this.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, like, what the heck is going
Now
on?
we pray.
Yeah, so I think it was a few days before. So it was
It was 3 days.
3 days before, yeah.
Well,
So we
no,
were supposed to leave
4.
Sunday, and we got the answer on Thursday.
We got the answer on Thursday. You didn't even get the email until Sunday.
I didn't get the email till Sunday night, yeah.
And we had to leave on Monday
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. So we start praying because we didn't get it. It's Thursday. He's like, you should get it by
Yeah.
Thursday, the latest. It's like Thursday midday, and I'm like, I still haven't gotten it.
Yeah, and this was one of those moments where actually the week before our pastor was talking about how when there's an open door, there's also opposition. And it was one of those moments where I was like, no, I know Stephanie and I know Gilbert are meant to be there. Like, we pray because clearly there's opposition happening here.
Yeah.
And like, especially for the White House, like, they're not disorderly.
Yeah.
Like, they know what they're doing. So there must be something going on here.
Right, yeah.
So we started to pray.
Yeah, and they kept saying like, well, we sent you the email. We sent out the email. We sent out the email.
Yeah.
And we didn't get it. We were
Mhm.
checking on me and Gilbert.
And
Everyone
you were
else
on the
got
list.
it.
He physically
Yeah.
saw the list.
So
They
me,
sent him the list.
me and Gilbert don't have it. Like,
out
I'm
of
like,
all the two,
this is weird.
Yeah.
And so Liz starts praying. We start praying, and Gilbert calls me. And so I pick up the phone, I'm like, hey, and he's like, I just saw the list. Our names are on the list. We're going. And I was like, awesome. So he gives me the days. He gives me everything. And he's like, just book what you can book. Like, we're going to go.
Yeah.
And so we end up like, we book a room, we book whatever. And we're like, okay, we're going to Washington.
Yeah.
So Sunday night, I actually get the email of
Yeah.
what to kind of look for and what's needed and stuff like that. We go shopping. We do the whole thing like to get
It was
ready
so
to go to
fun.
Washington. Yeah, it was so much fun. We went
Such a
with
good
Sue.
experience.
It was so much fun. And we just start gearing to go to Washington.
Yes.
So we leave Monday after work
Mm-hmm.
and we just head up to Washington.
Because you had to do
Training.
Yeah. Okay.
So the way that the breakfast works is you can go as a volunteer, which is what I went, and you serve like in
Mhm.
different areas. You could do registration, you can do ushering, you could do all these different things, but you serve at the breakfast.
Mhm.
And so I went as an usher. And so if you go as an usher, there's mandatory training.
Right.
So Monday was a mandatory training. So we drove to Washington. It wasn't as bad as like what it sounds. It was like a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
And so we went with Sue, Liz came, and it was a good like trip. It was like a road trip, you know?
Yeah.
We
Cute
were
little road trip.
talking. It was just fun. And so we go and Gilbert comes, obviously. And the second he shows up, he's just introducing me to everyone. Like,
Yeah.
this is this person. He's running for president of Venezuela. And this is this person. She's the ambassador of this. And this is this. And he's just like, and I'm just like shaking people's
Yeah.
hands. And he's like, this is the person that I call mom. And like, she has every connection that you will ever need in Washington, D.C. If you need anything, she's your mom too. She got you.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, what? Like,
that's-
I'm meeting
it
all
happens
these
so
people
fast.
so fast. And I'm meeting all these people. And I'm sitting there and this man gets up to talk.
Mhm.
And he's just kind of sharing of what the breakfast is going to look like. And he's sharing his heart. And he shares this one part of the breakfast, which is why I think is such an important breakfast.
Mm.
And he shares how a few years back, these two nations, they were neighboring nations. They shared a border. They were at war with each other. And the prime minister of that nation hated the prime minister of another nation. And they just were kind of just constantly at
Going
war,
at
can
it.
never agree. And so they're both invited to the National Prayer Breakfast. And lo and behold, they're sitting right next to each
Oh my
other at
goodness.
the National Prayer Breakfast. And he says the entire breakfast, they're like giving each other the side eye. They're like making snide comments. Like all these things are happening. And he says a lady gets up to speak. And she talks about forgiveness and how she forgives the people that killed her husband. She calls the people up and like hugs them and forgives them. And it was just like this beautiful moment of forgiveness. Yeah. Every breakfast has a theme. It just so happened to be that theme was forgiveness. And so they were so moved that they said to each other, okay, we've come all this way. Why not set up a meeting and let's talk?
Wow.
And so these two nations come together and they start to talk things over. And they kind of say what it's called. They called it the magic word. So they were like, well, my prime minister calls you blah, 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 blah. All these negative things. But he's like, but if you were to call our prime minister this, which is positive things, it will cease war. So they write down on napkins what the magic words are to kind of make war stop. So they go back to their countries and they give the prime ministers these notes, what the magic words are. And these nations go to war again, but then they say to each other, let's exchange the notes, and the war ceases. Oh, wow. And so the whole point of what he was trying to share is that the breakfast has the ability to stop wars. Like what could end in genocide and war actually ends in peace and love. And like that's the point of the breakfast, is to make unity possible. Give nations a chance to come together and put their differences aside and just love each other and see things from a different perspective. And so this breakfast, the theme was love your enemies. And so the whole point of the breakfast was look at things from a different perspective. Yeah. Do you love your enemy? And like what Jesus did to love his enemy, what that really means and what that really looks like. And so it was this beautiful moment where all these people who came in with all these different burdens and all these images, they just kind of laid them down and just accepted Jesus. And like, it was just such a pure, beautiful moment. And then like at one point of the breakfast, CeCe Winans, she sang, and she starts to sing Alabaster Box. Love that song. At the end of it, she says, I want us all to sing hallelujah. And at that point, it didn't matter your religion. It didn't matter who you called God. It didn't matter anything. Every single person in that room, from security to Secret Service to the rabbi to the monk, were all singing hallelujah. And like, it was this pure, I recorded it. It was this pure moment of heaven. It was like a moment where heaven sat in the room. And it's like, it gave me just like, you know, the verse that says like every tribe, every tongue. Yeah. Like it was like that made real. And it didn't matter what part of the country you were from. If you didn't speak English, it didn't matter. Everyone was singing hallelujah. And it was this moment where everyone was glorifying God, and it was so pure and it was so beautiful. And I've never felt heaven the way I felt heaven there. Wow. It was so powerful. And I just like sat there and I was like, God, like this is such a beautiful moment. And I remember like as a kid, my dad would always say to me, I would always like lean back in my chair or like spill things on my shirt. And he would always say, Steph, like you need to learn to eat properly because you never know if one day you'll be sitting in the same room as a president. And I'd be like, Dad, like I'm never going to sit in the same room as the president. Like, are you kidding? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm in the same room as the president. Yeah. And I'm in the same room as all these rulers and all these kings and all these queens. And I remember a prophetic word that I got, and it was a long time ago. This was before I even went to college. I think it was my uncle who prophesied it over me. And he said to me, Stephanie, one day you're going to be sitting with kings and queens and rulers of the world. You're going to be in the same room as them. And I remember being like, okay. And like in that moment, that prophetic word came to pass. Like I was sitting in the room with kings and queens and rulers of the world, prime minister, lords, very important people. And like me, Steph, little Steph, you know, like this broken girl, this girl who has seen so much. This girl has been through so much. In that moment, it made everything I've ever been through worth it. In that moment, I knew I was made for a purpose. In that moment, I knew that God had me here for a reason. This girl who tried to commit suicide 2 years ago, right? Like I never thought that I would be here. And God was like, this is why I have you here. And in the breakfast, I was able to meet with so many people, and them just asked me like, can you pray with me? Like, I'm going through so much. I have so much pressure. Can you pray with me? Or even me sitting with them and being like, how can I pray with you? Like, how can I serve you? How can I wash your feet? And them looking at me like, oh, wow. Like, I've never met anybody who said that to me. Like, you're not trying to sell me your agenda. Because normally when people sit there, it's to try to network.
Right, of course.
And so they're like, you're not trying to like sell me your agenda. You're trying to get to know me.
Literally just serve.
Yeah, you just want to serve me. And I was like, yeah, like I don't have an agenda. Like I have nothing. I just want to know you as a person.
Yeah.
And they were so grateful for that. So I was able to just pray with a bunch of people and just see God move. And it was just like a really, really amazing experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. Let's take it back to the beginning of on Thursday.
Sure.
Because that was even getting from leaving home to even getting to our Airbnb on, what was it, Wednesday night? That was a night.
Yeah, Sue was supposed to come with us, but she
Yeah.
ended up getting sick that day.
Yeah, she was in the hospital.
She was in the hospital. She ends up getting sick.
Oh, God. She's okay now. But
She's good.
Yeah.
She ends up getting sick and she can't come with us.
Yeah.
So we're like, what do we do? Like,
Yeah, I was a little worried because I was like, okay, she was going to be, because obviously I'm not going in with Steph and I didn't know what to expect. I knew to expect hella amount of Secret Service, so I was like already a little bit intimidated.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, where am I gonna go?
Yeah.
So it's me driving and we drive and we get there pretty quick because there was no traffic or anything. Because on Monday we came back.
Yeah.
Because we still had to go to work on Tuesday and Wednesday.
So that was our week. Like we left Monday. We drove to DC Monday after work, came back, went to work Tuesday, Wednesday, left.
Yeah.
Breakfast Thursday, came back Thursday night.
Yeah. It was
work on Friday.
Yeah. So we're driving to Washington. Great. Listening to some Rosalia. If you haven't listened to her, she got some bops.
Gosh,
I love her music.
Don't do it to yourself.
No, it's so good.
Or Blackpink.
And some BTS.
Yes, listen to Blackpink.
Literally, it's called do. I wish we were kidding.
Look it up.
It's a Korean pop girl band.
It'll
K-pop.
change
K-pop.
your life.
And make sure you listen to Rosalia.
Anyway,
so we were having a great time. We get to the Airbnb, a little sketchy.
Highly sketchy.
Okay. So we
every
get there.
B&B meeting you ever book.
And it's always when we're alone.
It's horrible.
Always when we're alone.
Horrible.
I think I would have been okay with it if like my mom was there, if there was just another extra fists there, another pair of fists. But no.
Sketchy.
You and I, yeah. So we get there at around 11:30.
Yeah, late.
At night.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know that we have to be at the breakfast at 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So that means we have to get up at like 3 o'clock and leave by, we had to leave at 4.
We had to leave at 4, get there at 4:35.
So we woke up at 3:30, but I didn't sleep at all because I was scared.
Yeah.
And then the people upstairs on the Airbnb were making hella noise. They were actually going to the breakfast as well because they were also up at 3:30 when we were up, and why else would you be awake at that hour?
Yeah, talking hella loud.
Yeah, talking hella loud. We heard a whole conversation.
So if you're listening to this, keep it down.
It was us. We were the ones. So we had no sleep. Then we also didn't even know what to anticipate. I knew that there was going to be a lot of people there, but I didn't know like where we're going to park. It was just going in blind. Mm-hmm. So it's pitch black out. We're driving. And we get to our destination and we're like looking for parking, and I know there's a parking garage, so I'm trying to go to it. The one that we wanted to go to was closed, of course. And so there's another one around the corner. We turn the corner and we see 2 big guys, Secret Service, fully with a massive guns. Yeah,
fully clothed,
with like mask, like those masks on that like
cover your face,
like to keep you warm because it's cold outside. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like 4 a.m.
I was like, okay, it's happening.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't, and he wasn't, they were on the corner of the street. It wasn't even like, anyway. So we pull up to the parking garage and there's a car in front of it, but there's a bunch of people outside. Well, men outside. And I rolled down my window. I'm like, can we park in here?
Actually, no, you were like, Steph, can you ask them?
I was so intimidated. They had a dog. They had a German Shepherd with like a police thing on it. I was scared, Steph. And I didn't want to be rejected.
Yes.
So I rolled down the window. I'm like, excuse me.
You didn't ask.
Yes, I did. No,
you did not.
No.
You asked me to ask. You did not ask.
You didn't ask.
Yes, I did.
You didn't ask. I was shaking in my boots. I remember. It might have been really low, like, excuse me, sir. But
no, because I remember being like, excuse me, can we park here?
No, you went, excuse me, and then I go, can we park here?
Yes, and I act like it was all you.
Oh, I never said it was. Shut up. And it was true.
Like, excuse me. No,
I was so scared.
I was like, excuse me. And you were like, can we park here?
I was like, can we park here? And they're like, yes. Pull up here, turn your car off, pop the hood, pop the trunk, and just
sit in your car.
Sit in your car. Don't get out. They were like, don't get out of the car. I was like, oh.
They're
okay,
like,
but I was like, but I'm driving my mom's car, so I don't really know how to pop the hood. Like, can you do it? And they're like, just open the door, and actually, they were kind of really nice.
They were super nice. They were like,
for it being 4 a.m, I was like,
yeah, they were like,
you definitely had your coffee.
They were like, sit in the car, don't open the car.
But it was very intimidating because there was at least 5 or 6 of them around the car, and now there's a dog sniffing our car. Not that there was anything in the car, it's just like intimidating.
It was, yeah.
And especially being in like a little city, like you don't really expect to be like, Anyway, so they were very nice. We go in and we find a parking spot, which is great. I really wasn't anticipating to find any parking. Like I thought I was gonna have to go back to the Airbnb and like stay there by myself scared in the corner, but that didn't happen. No. So we find a parking spot, running a little bit late, not too late, but we still have to figure out my situation and where you had to go. Because I thought I was just gonna have to sit in the car for like 6 hours. I really didn't know, am I gonna be allowed in the hotel? Like, what are they gonna do? Right. So we walk in, we walk right in, and we go upstairs, and full-on panic attack. I had a full-on panic attack. Mm-hmm. I think you were a little panicky, but not as much as me. Yeah,
the room is super intimidating. Think of rooms filled with like hundreds of people, all in suits, and like you're out of your element if you've never gone to any political anything. If you thrive in that arena, good for you. Yeah. But for us who have never experienced that before, it was so intimidating. Yeah,
I mean,
they
were
sniff
everywhere.
You out.
Oh, and there was like also, it's not like it's just a bunch of people. There was also like security, not just security, like Secret Service everywhere, FBI. Like staring you down like hawks. So it's like I'm scared to like even freaking itch my head without getting like freaking taken down. Mm-hmm. It was very I will say intense. The room was tense. It wasn't just like, oh, it's loud in here. It was like, no. Like everybody's at an all high, like adrenaline type of situation. So, and I walked in with like ripped jeans. Like I wasn't in any business attire. You were in business attire. Yeah. So I was like automatically like, I had a leather jacket on, like dark red. Yeah, I had like some dark. I don't know why I did that to myself. It's fine.
They targeted her. They knew. They were like, she don't belong.
Yeah, it was obvious. It was like going to school and you have dress code at the school, like going to private school and then showing up with like a mini skirt on.
Sure. Yeah.
That's how it felt. So we go into the bathroom. I'm like, I'm gonna have a panic attack. Like I need to get out of here. And you're like, well, I'm late. Like I need to go. And I was like, okay, go. I'm just gonna go in the car. And wait. Yeah. So I go down to the car. Absolutely no service, period. No. It's like they broke the service. I couldn't even go on Instagram. I couldn't go on Twitter. I couldn't text you. No. My texts weren't even going through.
Yeah.
I couldn't even call, nothing. So I'm like, okay. It's like pitch black in here. And I didn't bring a pillow or a blanket in the car, and it's cold already. So what am I going to do? Lo and behold, you come down.
I left
to
my
save
ID.
the day.
I
You
left my
your,
ID.
Honestly, the first time that your forgetfulness has ever done us something good.
I left my ID, so I had to go back to the car.
I had a feeling you were going to need your ID because, you know, the president's going to be there. I feel like they're going to ID everybody.
I do, yeah. And so, like, and then I was like, why is she going to stay in the car? Like, we'll figure out a spot for her.
And I was in the car and I was like, why am I in here? Like, I don't need. So my plan was I was going to wait like 15, 20 minutes until like you were all settled, and I was just going to go into the hotel and roam around and find somewhere to sit.
Right.
But you came down, and so we go together. I give you your ID and we go and find me a place to sit. Mm-hmm. I go to the hotel lobby, and like everybody, that's where everybody comes in. Like that was the main entrance. Mm-hmm. We didn't have to go through that entrance because we went through the parking deck underneath the hotel. So we're in the hotel lobby. You leave. I buy Wi-Fi. You buy the Wi-Fi because there was still no Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to like not be in contact with you.
Yeah, just in case something happened.
Yeah, just in case, or just like there's so many people. It's so big, like we don't know the area, so I don't know.
And God forbid Secret Service was like, you need to leave.
Yeah, I that was my thing. Is like if they kick me out, like I don't. They're not gonna kick a girl out, but you know.
Yeah. So yeah.
So I find a nice little spot with a TV.
A little spot
with my TV. I have like 4 TVs, and it's cool because they had CNN and Fox News on both the TVs, so I could see them talking about how today's the National Prayer Breakfast, and it was really cool to be like, oh my God, that's happening literally like
You're
beneath
right
me. Like I'm there. It was really cool for me. You go downstairs, so I'm there by myself, and a bunch of people. To register, they had to come through the lobby doors. Mm-hmm. And so I saw every single person, every political person walk through those doors. Mm-hmm. I got to see like the cars, like the blackout suburban cars with like the police lights on come and be like escorted in, and it was really cool to see. And all the, like you were saying earlier, like all the different religions, like monks, rabbis, all these people from different countries wearing like their, you know,
their gowns,
like supporting like their country, and wearing,
national
oh my God,
arms,
I felt like it was cool because I felt really honored to even just be in the lobby and see that, because I had prayed like a month before that. Like I even talked to you about it. I was like, I know I'm called to travel the world, but like I want to see it now. Like I want to experience different cultures and all that. And then I was sitting there, and at one point all the people were coming in with like the political people and like their team. They weren't invited in. So like me, they were just sitting around me, and at one point nobody was speaking English. There was like people speaking from
like Thailand.
Thailand, Taiwan, Pakistan, the Philippines, and none of them were speaking English. So I heard all these different languages being represented. And all these nations being represented. Beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, like I thought that I was coming to just, you know, support you, which I was. Like I wasn't expecting anything out of this, just to celebrate and honor and come alongside you and support you in that. But me sitting there and like being like, wow, God is answering my prayers. Right. Like this is crazy. Yeah. So I also got to watch the whole entire breakfast. They live streamed it for the people in the lobby. So I got to watch all of it, and what the people who weren't there were only able to see the president's speech. Yeah. So run me down who you met, what it was like from start to finish, the president.
Yeah, well, before we get there, I kind of want to say something, because you came to support me, like you said, and like God really opened doors for your future also, because even on Monday, which I forgot to kind of say, was when Gilbert was introducing us to all these people, he introduced us to this woman who is his mom, who she knows everyone and anyone, like has like the president of whatever country you ever want to go to, she has the connection.
Well, I had a conversation with her, and she told me that I don't necessarily know exactly what she does, but ever since Nixon, I don't know which president it was. It was either Nixon or the president after Nixon, which God knows I don't know that information. Okay. She has worked in like like
alongside,
assisting in a sense. So she's worked with Nixon, President Obama, obviously President Trump, Clinton. Yeah. So very closely with them. So that's who she is.
That's who she is. Yeah. So she's very important. Yeah. And so that's Gilbert's mom. That's his Washington mom. He has a lot of mamas, but that's one of his mamas.
Not his birth mom.
Not his birth mom, but like, you know, like I have a lot of spiritual moms. He has a lot of spiritual moms.
She really took him
She took him in, yeah. And so she's the reason why Gilbert was able to go to the National Prayer Breakfast to begin with.
And he's been going for 5 years.
He's been going for a while, yeah. So she's the reason why he can go, why I can go, whatever. So so her and Liz and Sue start talking, and like we all know that Liz wants to do music and all that stuff. If you don't know, Liz wants to do music. In the beginning of this podcast, the song that we play is one of Liz's songs. Her and Micah are producing an EP that's coming out soon. So keep an eye out for that.
Hopefully in July.
Hopefully in July. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah. So Liz starts to share her story with this woman. Sue is sharing with this woman, and then this woman's like, well, my daughter works in the music industry, and like, so they start to connect. She gives Liz her card, which is a big deal. Yeah. And so God really worked in your life, and like you said, like he answered the prayer of the culture. So like my point in bringing all of that up is that like celebrating people opens doors for you too. Mm-hmm. When you can really honor and celebrate people, which I've seen, it's really hard for people to do. Yeah. But when you learn that, that's a part of heaven, and God honors that. So when you take a second to be like, wow, I celebrate what God is doing in your life. And even if you have your friends, like if you're celebrating them, just know that if it's a close friendship, whatever blessing they get, you get like a double portion of that. And so like, that's kind of like how our friendships have worked. Is like whatever God does in your life, he does it in my life, and he double portions it, and like vice versa. Yeah. And so like godly friendships are so beautiful, and they're just like, they're so unique. And so like I encourage it, like if you're lonely, like look for godly friendships, like and God will bring them alongside you if you're open to it, if you're willing.
I've had many people message me who listen to the podcast saying that like they really appreciate our friendship and want, like they see that it's a God ordained friendship, and that's what they want. Yeah. So we come alongside you.
Yeah, we pray for you guys for that. And it's a beautiful thing. So so I just wanted to touch on that real quick before we kind of continue on with with what God did. So thanks for supporting, and I'm happy what God is doing in your life.
It was completely unexpected.
It was,
and I honestly still don't know really exactly what happened. I'm praying about it, because just because it's an opportunity doesn't mean it's a God opportunity. Sure. So there's that. Yeah. Anyway, so back to you. So exciting. So we leave. We depart from each other.
We go downstairs.
Okay.
I go downstairs. I have no idea what I'm doing. And
they changed the whole setup,
right? They changed everything than what we went over on Monday, and nobody emailed me telling me that it was changed. So whatever I walked through on Monday, guess what? Throw it out the window. There was no point in Monday. Yeah. There was no point in Monday. So we go, other than you meeting the lady and me meeting the people. Yeah. So like, whatever. I'm like so confused. I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know where I'm going.
Where to get your ID.
I'm just walking, just following the crowd, and Secret Service is everywhere.
It's so intimidating. You're afraid to sneeze.
They're holding the doors. They're standing, but they have these like magazines in their hands, and they're like, every checkpoint I had to get searched. Like they had to run the magazine thing through me, and like they're like, turn around. Every single checkpoint. I'm like, yo, my man just like, I'm like, how did if I made it this far, if I made it this far, don't you think that they would have picked something up the first 5 checkpoints? Don't you think?
People are sneaky.
Don't you think? And he was like, sorry, we have to do it again. I'm like, bro, at that point I was just like used to it. I was just doing it.
Walk with your arms out.
I was doing. So I get my ID and I go into the room. And they're like, all right, we're starting. It's like 5. I'm like, we're starting? I didn't even eat no breakfast. I'm like, what you mean we're starting? There's no coffee? I'm like, yo, like, you told me there was going to be coffee.
They showed up early.
Yo, I'm like, I didn't get no coffee. People have been there since 3:30 in the morning. Yep. I'm like, y'all did not sleep. Y'all did not sleep.
They didn't. There's no way they could. There's no time.
They didn't sleep. And so I'm like looking for Gilbert. Freaking Gilbert. He's nowhere to be found. I'm like, yo, this boy is late. He's late. So they close the doors.
And you're by yourself.
I'm by myself.
Just think about that. That's intimidating. I'm proud. I'm so proud of you, because that's intimidating.
It was actually one of the most scariest things. I said like, there's significant moments where I have to do things by myself that are like big, like fly to Europe by myself. I thought that was scary, but this was actually pretty scary because I'm walking into this room and I thought I was going to leave. Like I texted Liz, I'm like, I don't think I can do this.
I was like, no, you're not.
I had so much anxiety and I felt so out of place. I didn't know anybody. These people are so, like congressmen. Think about that. Like the people you see on TV are in that room. Like all these very important people, and I'm sitting there like,
and you're tired, like it's exhausted. A whole thing. We didn't eat, there was no coffee, nothing.
I didn't sleep.
Not that that's an excuse, but it does.
Yeah, it affects you.
Your mental space.
It does, yeah. And then I'm like, I don't even know how to tell people what I want to do.
Right.
Like I still didn't, like the whole like few months I'm trying to prepare, like if you ask Liz, I'm like, Liz, how do I even explain to people if they ask me like, so what do you do? Like, how do I tell them? Like I teach children, and at the same time, like I pastor people, I guess. I also love to counsel. I'm also like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the heck to tell people. And so like, I still don't know what the heck to tell people if they ask me. And then I'm sitting there and I'm by myself. They get up, they pray, and they're like, all right. They start calling out teams. I'm texting. I'm like, yo, where are you? Gilbert, where are you? And he's like, oh, I just woke up. I'm like, you just woke up? I'm like, my boy.
His alarm didn't go off.
Yeah, I'm like, boy. Like, you were supposed to be here at 5. It's now 5:15, 5:20. You just woke up, you know?
Yeah.
Later to find out, Gilbert didn't go to bed till like 3 a.m, so he just needed a little bit of sleep.
Yeah.
That poor boy is working. So
yeah.
Anyway, so I'm there by myself. They're calling out to the teams. It's me, this congressman, and this guy from Hungary.
Love it.
His name is Zoltar.
Zoltar, we salute.
Zoltar, Zoltar. And he has a heavy, thick accent. Like my man is from Russia. I'm just kidding. He's from Hungary.
They have thick accents. My cousins are from Hungary.
Thick. So he's
it's
like
a tough language.
Tough. So he's talking to me. I don't know what the heck he's saying. I'm like, I'm trying to listen to him. We're talking, and he has an internship with the Prime Minister of Hungary. Of course, right? And he lives in Bethesda, of course.
Of course he lives in Bethesda.
It keeps following me. And he's the first person I talked to. He lives in Bethesda, and he is there working with children. Like maybe from 8 years old to 15. So children to teenagers, you know, that age group. And he's teaching them the Hungarian language.
Beautiful.
At the same time, he's working to bring Christianity into Hungary. Hungary is a closed country.
Yes.
His dad actually started the National Prayer Breakfast in Hungary.
Wow.
Which is crazy. So he came to the National Prayer Breakfast just to get experience, you know. He was 23. Imagine that. 23 years old.
That's how old I am.
23 years old. You're interning with the Prime Minister, and you are just trying to bring Christianity to your country. And his heart is for politics. His heart is to change politics for Jesus. And he just loves Jesus.
I think, sorry, not to cut you. I think what I appreciated the most is that when they say that like the ushers are Christian and like it's a Christian event, it's a Christian event.
It is. Everyone
like,
there is a Christian.
All the volunteers are
They're
Christian.
Believers, yeah. They are.
And not just Christian.
No,
it's
like hardcore.
Legit, like the gospel. Yeah. The gospel is being shared.
It is,
okay,
yeah.
You can
and which was a big thing that they shared in our training. Like you are, like one of the things that they said, they were like, you carry the presence of God, which I thought was so amazing.
Yeah.
They were saying like, listen, like these people need to encounter Jesus, and you're the first person that they encounter when they walk into this room. So guess what? When they see you, they're going to see Jesus. Amazing. So they were like, let's make sure your heart is correct. This isn't a chance to share your political views. This is a chance to share Jesus and the gospel. And I'm sitting there like, yes. Like I'm like thriving, you know. Such a beautiful, beautiful moment. So this guy loves Jesus. He's interning here. He did 4 years here, and he's doing another 4 years back in Hungary. He leaves in June back to Hungary. And he misses home, and he wants to go back home. That's what he shared with me.
That's a long trip. It's like 24 hours.
Yeah, it's a while. Yeah. It's a long way from home. So he was ready to go. He was ready to go back home, but it was cool to hear his story. Like this guy traveled all the way from Hungary to fight for like religious freedom in his country, you know.
I love that.
So it was cool to kind of see how God was working through him and how I could pray for him. And then Gilbert comes in, and he comes in with his friend from Kenya. And this guy lives in an island that I've never heard of. It's Maulki. Kios.
I'm not even going to try it.
I don't even know how to pronounce it, but that's where he lives. I've never heard of it till I met this man. And they were so welcoming. He hugs me. I'm like, I don't even know this guy. He's hugging me. He's like, welcome. Like, I'm so excited. This is your first breakfast. My name is Michael. And he's like, this is what I do. And he, again, works in politics and try to bring Jesus into politics in the country that he lives in. And I met this other woman who works in Washington, D.C. She's from Zimbabwe. And she, again, trying to bring Jesus into politics. Like, the whole thing is them wanting to share the gospel in these really heavy spaces. I met another woman who works with the Chinese ambassadors. And she, again, loves the Lord, travels to Hong Kong frequently. She's 38 years old, looks like she's 15. And she, again, loves the Lord and trying to bring Jesus into closed countries through the political system. I really got to meet a lot of people because I was walking a lot of people back to their seats or to the bathroom, or you're ushering. So you're literally shout out to the usher team at church. Like, I learned how to usher.
Also, I want to say what's really cool. Another big thing that like was favor is that you could sign up for different parts, but you might not be in the actual breakfast. You might be outside the doors or like at one of the checkpoints, but you were actually in the actual ballroom, which is amazing. Yeah,
most teams were outside, so kind of ushering people to the ballroom. My team was actually in the ballroom. And the way that it was set up, we actually weren't supposed to be in the ballroom. We didn't have any tables. We just took over someone's section because there was a team that had a bunch of sections, and we were just like, this is our section. And so like we really just took over like a part of the ballroom, and we were like, even inside the middle of the center, it's the way that it looks, it's the way that it's set up. It's like a football. The room is like a big football. Like literally looks like a football from like aerial view. And in the middle, which would be like, let's say like the dance floor, is where a bunch of tables are set up, and then you have balconies, like kind of like a step up, and then like more chairs kind of set up. And then the president is up on a stage, and that's called the head table. And so like a wedding. It's like a wedding. So you're escorting people all over the ballroom. You really have your section that you were staying at, but I didn't care. I was just escorting people all over the place because it was just a cool opportunity. I literally ran into Sean Foyt, like literally ran into him.
Physically ran into him?
By accident. I wasn't looking where I was going and almost tackled him off his chair. But
you almost messed up his hair.
I almost did. He like did the whole hair flip thing. If you know Sean Foyt, he's like obsessed with his hair. He like does this hair flip thing.
Love a good little Samson moment.
It's so funny. So I met him. I met just a bunch of people that were, again, I don't remember their names, but there was like the Lord of something from Europe that I was like, I didn't know where his seat was, and I was just walking him in circles because I didn't have my map, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. He's like, no, it's okay. I'm having a good time. I'm like, okay. And it was just walking him around. And I just met these people who were like religious leaders, like pastors and missionaries from different parts of the world. And there was this one woman who I sat down and I asked her, I'm like, so what do you do? And she's like, well, I just want to be a voice for the persecuted church, which is something that we can kind of jump into now. And I was like, oh, awesome. Like, okay, like Voice of the Martyrs. If you've never heard of Voice of the Martyrs, it's kind of like that, like literally what it sounds like, Voice for the Martyrs. And so I was just like, oh, okay. Like I didn't really think anything of it. And then I like kind of went back to my thing, and they do like an announcement over the loudspeaker, like the breakfast will commence in 30 seconds. And God, like this countdown starts happening, and I'm like, we're Hunger Games. Like the 25th annual Hunger Games will commence. Gosh. Like that's what it felt like a speaker like that. Like think Hunger Games speaker, that's what it sounded like. And so I'm like, so I go to find my spot, because if you don't find a spot, Secret Service actually kicks you out. And so I find my little spot like behind a column so I don't get kicked out by Secret Service, so no one can see me. I hide in the corner, and they start counting down, and they start the breakfast. And the president isn't there yet. It's the National House Speaker. The House Speaker for the White House is there, Mary Pelosi. And the Vice President is there, Mike Pence is there, and a whole bunch of other people there. CeCe Winans was there, a pastor was there. They had different people there. The Speaker of the morning was there, and different congressmen were there. And so they come, and they're just announcing the people, like, this is this person, whatever. And the guy goes, now we're going to play this video. and they start playing this video of the persecuted church and people from all over the world who are in prison for sharing the gospel, or who have been beat up, or have been just literally what it sounds like, persecuted for the church, like almost put to death, have been arrested. This one woman was arrested like the day after her wedding for sharing the gospel. Now, this isn't something that was on television. Like, this is, again, like, the press isn't allowed in this. This is such a private event that they don't allow press. You're not allowed to take pictures. You're not allowed to record. You're not allowed to do any of that. Secret Service will literally take your phone.
Of course, people still do it. But
people did it, and I saw Secret Service taking their phones and putting it on the table. Like, they literally did not care. They were like, give me your phone.
Yeah.
They took it out of people's hands. I was like, they don't play.
Yeah.
Like, how scary is that, you know? So anyway, so they start sharing the different people that are literally sharing their pictures and their names.
It was beautiful.
And I was like, wow, this is crazy. So Liz was able to see it because she saw a live feed from the hotel. Because the people that got kicked out, you were able to go to the lobby or another room to watch it live. So anyway, I'm watching these people, like, you know, like on this screen, and I'm like, wow, like, that's awesome, that's amazing. And all of a sudden they go, now those people are in the room, can those people stand up? I was like
trying not to cry because there was like businesmen and like people from different countries like looking. I was like trying not. I'm like holding my Bible like.
I was a hot mess. The entire breakfast, I was a hot mess. I couldn't believe, one, that I was in the same room as all these people, and then you had them stand up.
I know.
There was this
like,
one lady, her name was like Mama something. Her name was like Mama something. Let's call her like Mama
May.
Mama May. Yeah, it was like Mama M. It was like an M.
Mama stand up.
And she stood up, and she was being persecuted in her country for sharing the gospel.
And like legit persecution, not just like, hey, you're a Christian.
Yeah,
it's
not
like,
just
no,
like, oh,
like, or we disagree with you, or like, it was like literally there was this one man, he was a teacher, and he was in prison for 25 years.
A professor in prison for 25 years.
In a different country. Not like those prisons are. The prison system is already all jacked up.
Yeah.
Could you imagine in a different country?
Crazy.
And he was African American. Could you imagine?
Yeah. It's crazy. And so like these people stand up, and I'm just seeing like all of these people just have this like beautiful like love for the gospel. Like you could just see it. Like they just love Jesus.
Yeah.
And they're sitting in this room, and I'm like, wow, God, like these people have such a boldness and such a courage, and I've been through so much, and it's such an honor to be in their presence.
Yeah.
Like it was such an honor to be in the presence of these people that have been through so much, you know, for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And like, I felt like, you know what, like it gave me this boldness and this courage to just like preach the gospel, you know, like this boldness and this courage to not be ashamed of Jesus. Not that I was before, but at the same time, like it's this beautiful moment of like, wow, God, like these people love you so much. And I read this book called Voice of the Martyrs. I don't know why I've had such a pull to it, and I found out National Prayer Breakfast. Well, I've always loved like Voice of the Martyrs, and like just like it's just reading up on people that have died for Jesus and like persecuted for Jesus. And in the beginning of the book, he says, if Jesus wasn't real, why would these people suffer the way that they suffered for something that wasn't real? Right. Like Jesus has to be real, you know? And so in that moment, that quote was so real to me. Yeah. Like Jesus is so real. Like any ounce of doubt just left. Any ounce of fear just left. Like all boldness, all courage, all confidence in who Jesus was. Like I felt like I got that in that moment, just being in the presence of these people.
I felt the same thing, and I wasn't even in the room.
Yeah, it was
like,
so powerful.
I felt like this, I don't know, I felt like something was imparted to me by me just being there. Because I was like, first off, I was like, I can't believe Stephanie is in the room with the president. Yeah. I can't believe the favor that God has. And for me, like the fact that you have favor means that I have favor because of our friendship. Yeah. And I was like, I can't believe that I'm here sitting amongst these people. Like one of the men, it wasn't like I was just around business people. Like these people were a part of the team of the people who were in there. Like one of the guys that I was sitting next to, he was so nice. He was from the Philippines, and his team was in there. They had been going for like 5 years. And then the guy next to him, he was from Pakistan, and he had this whole fit on. I was like, I'm living for this moment. I'm living. And his father was in there. But I was like, I felt this boldness, like you were sharing, like like that these people need to hear the gospel. These are important people, and it starts with them.
It does.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where the change in the countries genuinely start. It starts with the leaders. And then even seeing at the Send the week after.
Yeah.
This past week, if you don't know, the Send is this really big convention. And is it a convention?
It's like a
conference.
Worship.
A worship thing. And they did it in Brazil, and the president of Brazil got saved.
Yeah, I have a really cool story that I want to share about like the presidents getting saved and how it impacts a country. And this is why I think politics and praying for our government is so important.
Yeah, that was like, it was really like, it woke me up.
It does.
I was like, this is legit.
Yeah.
Like, we need to be praying for these people.
Yeah, we do. And like, and I think,
and not, sorry, I
go ahead.
And not to just pray that what the policies that we want to be passed are passed. No. Just praying for that person
as a human being. They're humans.
Yeah. It humanized them.
Yeah.
I was like, seeing them like physically there, it was like, these are just human beings. There's nothing different between them and I. The only difference is their position.
Yeah.
And if I were given that position, or if I was called to that position, I would want people to pray for me.
Absolutely. What's the country that went through the genocide?
It's either Uganda or Rwanda. I think it's Uganda. It's Uganda.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure it's the Uganda, because Uganda and Rwanda had one, but I don't know which one is worse.
Okay, there was a country that went through this massive genocide. Just to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying, as far as like these like praying for our leaders, and like the president of Brazil getting saved, and how significant and important this is. And there was a genocide in a country, I can't remember if it's Uganda or Rwanda. It was a country like that.
Both of those countries had really, really bad genocides.
So this country went through, it was one of the worst genocides our country has ever seen. That country has ever seen. The guy, he started a national prayer breakfast. The president of this country started a national prayer breakfast in his country. And he said, he got up to speak, and he said at the national prayer breakfast, he says, if you were here 7 years ago, he says to his country, you could, if you were sitting in this room, you would be able to hear the screams in the street of the people that were dying. Like, people were killing each other like with machetes. Like, you could not come out of your home.
I took a whole genocide class in high school, and one of the genocides that we spoke about was that one. It was brutal, like bloody, brutal. Babies dead on the street, families dead on the street, like on the street, just dead. They didn't care.
Bodies everywhere, just dead, like a genocide. And he said this country is known as a country of broken hearts because of the genocide. And he says, we need a new heart. And he says, one thing that the U.S. Embassy cannot give us is a new heart. They can give us aid, they can help us, they can do all these things, but they cannot give us a new heart. And that's what we desperately need. And he said this, he said, the only person, this is the president of this country, he says the only person that could give us a new heart is Jesus Christ.
Oh my goodness.
That's what he says. This is what's being shared at the breakfast. I'm letting you know right now, this is the gospel that's being shared. He goes, the only person that could give us a new heart is Jesus Christ. And he says, this country will now be known as a country who loves and serves Jesus Christ. And we will no longer be known as the country of broken hearts, but the country of new hearts, because we have Jesus.
Oh my
what
gosh.
A power. This is the president of this country, the leader of this country, calling for his nation to repent. And that's the gospel that's being shared at the prayer breakfast amongst nations.
Yep.
Imagine that. Imagine how significant that moment is. When I was sitting in the room, I literally felt, because I remember as a kid saying like, man, I feel like I'm going to change history or be a part of history. Yeah. I'm sitting in the room and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is it. Like, I feel like someone's going to click. This is going to click in someone's heart. Someone's going to walk away changed with this. They're going to bring this gospel message back to their country, and it's going to revolutionize the nations. Yeah. It's insane. It's insane. Yeah. And so, like, just to piggyback off of that, this is why it's so important to pray for government. Like, it doesn't, like, if you don't think the government's important, you need to study it. You need to do your research. You really need to look at it.
I was genuinely one of those people who was completely ignorant.
Right.
And I didn't want to know either. Like, I didn't care.
Right.
And being there, it seriously changed my perspective.
Yeah, it changes your life.
Yeah, it made me feel more a part of the world in a weird way. Like, oh, like I can make a difference too.
You can, yeah. And it opens your eyes to see like your problems aren't as big as you think they are.
Yeah.
Right? We say that all the time, like get perspective. Nothing gives you perspective like learning what's going on in other countries.
Oh my gosh.
You know,
yeah.
nothing gives perspective like seeing what actual government people go through on a day-to-day basis. I see people argue back and forth, up and down on Facebook, like why President Trump shouldn't be a president, why this person needs to be a president, why this policy and this and that and the third and the fourth. And I sit there and I'm like, yo, just pray for my man. Like if he's in leadership, okay, he's in leadership. Right?
There's nothing we can do about it.
My man is now there. What
we tried. Do? Well, we didn't. They tried to impeach him. All right.
He's there.
Bro, it ain't gonna work.
He's there. Yeah. Okay. Whether you believe God placed him there or not, we're not here to argue it. You have your beliefs. That's okay. Have your opinions.
Absolutely.
But the point is that he's there. So instead of grumbling and this person and he's a liar and he's this and he's that and the shame on the White House, yo, pray for him. Because you don't know what it's like to be a president. And some of us will never, ever have to make the decisions.
Well, the majority of us.
Will never have to make a decision.
99%.
Listen, you will never have to make a decision that a president has to make. You don't know that pressure. So instead of you judging that person, instead of you like, oh, well, I would have done it this way. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Because you don't know what he has to, the decisions he has to make. You don't know the red tape. You don't know any of it. As much as you think you do, you don't. Yeah. So why don't you get on your knees and ask the Lord to send people alongside him to build him up in the gospel? Or why don't you pray for an encounter with the living God? Why don't you pray that Jesus himself sits in his room, that Samuel comes or Samson comes and like these prophets and these people, like God will raise up the Samuels and the Samsons and the Daniels and these people to pour wisdom into his life. Why don't you pray for that?
And I think like also is looking at the scripture.
Right.
Like if you look at King Nebuchadnezzar, clearly I see a lot of the similarities as Trump and King Nebuchadnezzar. He was very arrogant, ignorant.
Yeah, and if you read up on Babylon, throughout the Bible, read Habakkuk, read Jeremiah, God says that he is sending the Babylonians. He was sending them King Nebuchadnezzar. Read your Bible.
Yeah, so
read it.
I think and not just to read it to educate yourself so you can combat people, but so you can get perspective on what's happening. Right. That's the whole point of the Bible, is to gain perspective. It's not to gain knowledge so then you can spit it back in someone's face. Never about that. No. If you're reading the Bible for that purpose, I don't know why you're reading it at all. Right. Because it should be changing something inside of you and giving you the eyes of Jesus and the eyes of heaven and the eyes of God and the heart of God and the will of God. Yeah. And if you see it through that perspective, it changes a lot. It does. Because I would look at like President Trump and be like, ugh, not a fan, but also he's my president. Right. I agree with things. I don't agree with things. Right. But seeing him, like praying that God genuinely gives you his eyes, like the eyes of heaven, to see this man, because he is our leader and we are called to respect and honor our leaders. And here's the thing. More importantly, he's a son of the Father. Exactly. That's more important. Like whether or not you agree with him, he belongs to Jesus. Every person on this earth belongs to Jesus. And that's what I've even said about the pimps and drug dealers and people like that people shame. And yes, we don't condone what they're doing and we don't agree with anything that they're doing. I really but at don't the same appreciate time, his character. No, but at the same time, he belongs to Jesus. Exactly. Whether he's awakened to that reality or not, that man belongs to Jesus. So who you're speaking against is a son of the Father. Yeah. Like you wouldn't want anybody speaking against you. I'm not saying you have to agree, but what I'm saying is choose your words carefully. Yeah. Before you call him all these names, make sure that your heart is right. Yeah. Make sure that, listen to me, I saw in that room were Democrats, Republicans, independents. There were people who don't even like Trump at all. Yeah. But in one moment, in an hour, 2 hours, people laid down their political views and they were able to honor and respect whoever it was who was speaking, whether they agreed or not. And that's maturity. That's maturity, and that's the gospel. I agree. Anyway, so we saw a lot of that happening where people who were on both different sides. Well, the speaker that spoke was a Democrat. Yeah. He was not a Republican. My man was on the other house. He was for the other house, but he still honored the president. Yeah. And he still spoke. And the theme of it was loving your enemies. That was the theme. That was the theme. And so and President Trump was honest. He's like, I'm having a hard time with this message, which tough. I appreciated him being honest. But at the same time, I don't agree with that. I wish he wouldn't have said that, but he did say that. But at the same time, look,
the gospel is being preached, and we need to pray for our leaders because it has the ability to change the course of a nation.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And so pray for Brazil, pray for the president of Brazil, pray for the presidents all around the world. Just pick a country and just say, Lord, bless that president. Or Lord, I pray wisdom on that president. Like, just pick a country and just pray.
And like,
even if you're not an intercessor, just pray.
Yeah. And like I was saying earlier with King Nebuchadnezzar, like, he was nasty.
Yeah.
He was nasty. Nastier than President Trump. Nasty. And still the Lord like moved on his heart.
He did. Okay, so I just want to read this quote real quick. It says this: "We don't punish prayer. We don't tear down crosses. We don't ban symbols of faith. In America, we celebrate faith, cherish religion, and raise our sights to the glory of God."
Who said that?
Anonymous.
Okay.
If you want to know, I want you guys to tell me what you think about the quote, and then I'll tell you who said it. But
me. No, I'm just kidding.
What I love about the quote is this is the freedom that's represented in heaven, right? Where we have the ability to be who we were created to be, to love who we were created to love the Father. You have freedom to exercise your faith. Yeah. And so like people in other countries don't have that freedom. Oh. If anything, their crosses are being torn down. Yeah. There are people that are being persecuted for loving Jesus.
We even see it here sometimes with in Louisiana. There was a Was it Louisiana? Their church was burned down.
And so like
was his church burned down because of persecution?
And because he was black. Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying here?
Yeah. And so pray for people in other nations. Pray for Christians. Pray for the persecuted church. Yeah. And like pray for our leaders in our government.
I just genuinely feel like it's time for us to stand up, like for Christians to grow up and like understand the time that we're living in. And you were created for such a time as this. Like you were created for the end times in a sense, because that's where we're at. But we are in a time where things are getting dark, and it's time for us to stand up. Like I'm genuinely tired of people saying things without
consequences.
Yeah, saying things, Christians saying things about God that aren't even biblical. Like I don't even know where you got that. It's time to stop twisting what the Bible says and genuinely hold it as what it actually means, instead of twisting it to be something that we want it to be, because it makes us feel more comfortable to do the things that we're doing that we know are wrong. Yeah. Genuinely, I'm like, and I don't say these things because I feel that I'm perfect. I say these things because it's truth. And I have to every single day check my heart too. Yeah.
Iron sharpens iron. You know?
Yeah. And it's harsh to say, but like, I'm genuinely really tired of people being something that we were never created to be.
Yeah. And it's all in love. Like, we're not saying it like, cut it out. Like, obviously, people come to like this understanding on their own. But like the point that we're trying to make is that like at some point, like, yes, you have your opinions, and yes, you have your point of views, and those things are beautiful, and we're not rejecting that. We welcome that. But what we're saying is that if you're going to make bold statements, if you're going to say things about government and leadership, which is fine, not saying that everyone needs to agree, we should be able to disagree and continue to be friends and family and love each other and move on. It should not affect the way we see each other, but at the same time, like, back up your points, you know, and back up how you're living. If you're living a certain lifestyle, back it up with the Bible. Don't just say it because it sounds good. Like, don't just quote just random things. Like, no, the Bible is here for a reason. Learn your Bible, back things up that you're living with the Bible. That's what we're supposed to do as Christians. As Christians, we're not just supposed to be like, oh, I believe in Jesus. There's a difference between a believer and a disciple. And Jesus is looking for disciples, not just believers. And so a disciple learns the words of their Father, right? They learn his words. They study his words. They learn what he says. That's what it means to be a disciple. Again, a difference between a believer and a disciple. Which category do you fall in? God is looking for disciples.
Yeah, and I genuinely feel like my eyes have been opened and I've been woken up. And like I feel like a duty to wake other people up. Like I can't be quiet anymore. Right. Like there's no room for silence anymore. Right. Like we need to genuinely like be a good representation of heaven and Jesus and just love people.
Yeah. And this all woke up like after, like during prayer breakfast and after. Yeah. Right?
And I just want to share that with other people because I wasn't even in the room. Right. And like I saw this. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the prayer breakfast is such a beautiful thing. it was just a beautiful moment. I believe that the Lord had me there to show me so much. And even like kind of solidify my calling.
Yeah.
And like it all makes sense why I feel these pulls toward all these different things. Like it all makes sense now.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
genuinely opened that door.
He
and
did.
There was no man that could close
No,
it.
it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Jesus wanted me there. Yeah. I just want to say like it was an amazing experience.
I want to say
that
I'm really proud of you.
Thanks.
And I honor you and I celebrate you.
Thanks.
Because honestly, even last year, I could have never, I mean, I've always believed in you, you know that.
Right.
But like seeing where we were both at, like I would have never thought that a year later of searching and trying to find the genuine truth and Jesus and all of what we experienced, that I would have ever thought that you would be there that soon.
Right.
So I just want to celebrate and honor you. And
thank you.
And I just want to celebrate and honor what God is doing in your life, because it's happening and I'm really excited for you.
Wow, thank you so much. That was so nice of you.
Pray for your government. Shoot. Pray for the nations.
Darn it. Just kidding. All right, guys. I love you guys so much. I'm just going to wrap this up.
I'm like, let's keep going.
I'm just going to wrap this up because I'm tired and I have to get up early and I still have to do my Bible study.
Oh,
She's just been falling behind, you know what I'm saying? Take her to the National Prayer Breakfast once and she thinks that she's the princess of Genovia. I had Liz, a funny moment. When we got home, the whole ride I was like acting a fool. So like I was telling Liz, I'm like, don't touch me. I'm a congresswoman. And she was like, oh my God. She was like, can you text my dad this? I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm a congresswoman. I'm not texting anyone. And I dead up did not text anybody.
I was like, oh, you're literally not going to tell my dad that we're on our way home.
Yeah,
okay.
I was like, no.
I'm driving. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I was acting a hot mess. And then when we got home, I'm like, listen, this is what you have to do. You have to announce me as princess. What was it?
It was now introducing.
This is her line.
Mia Thermopolis Rinaldi, Stephanie Nicole Rivera McEwen Jacobus, Princess of Genovia.
And she had to say that from the top of her lungs. When we walked into the house, I was like...
No, like, I wasn't even... I didn't want to participate. I was forced.
I forced her. I was like, do I need to give you like a little stick thing? You know
I was
how
like,
they
wow,
bang the
she's
stick like dunk, dunk.
She is not a princess. No. She's a dictator.
That's why God does not have me in any of those positions. I was like, open the door.
You like, open the door. I'm not touching anything.
Yeah. I was acting a hot mess afterwards.
So
I'm
dumb.
like, text for me, peasants.
Yeah, I was like,
I would like an iced water, please.
Yeah, wait, we went to Starbucks or something. You're like, I'm not holding this.
I was say like, that. You're like, can you hold this? I'm like, no.
You're like, no, I'm not holding this. I was like,
this. Acting a mess. So that was the fun part of the breakfast.
And then you were humbled the next day when you realized you had to go back to work and work with and change a bunch of diapers. So
have to change a bunch of poopy diapers.
You were hella humbled.
Sneezed on and coughed on and.
So if you made it this far, we're so happy that you were able to listen and join us, and we hope that what was imparted to us was imparted into you, and we would love to hear from you guys and hear feedback. So message us on Instagram. I'll link it all down below. And we can't wait to see you. Well, not see you.
We do that every single week. I don't think
I'm keeping it.
I don't think we're ever going to get it right.
We can't wait to see you.
We're not seeing them. We're not even hearing them. We're talking to them.
Well, I can close my eyes and picture it.
No, we're talking at them.
No, we're not.
End the show. End it.
End the show.
End it.
All right, we love you guys. See you next
Let's go. My gosh.